My, where has the time gone? We are approaching the end of yet another year. Again, this is Black in the Day in the 313. We are broadcasting this segment as a part of the Get Up Stand Up show with Minister Malik Shabazz. My name is Baba Kafense, aka Dr. Chike. You're viewing us on TV 33 WHPR, broadcasting live from the capital of the African world, Highland Park / Detroit, Michigan. We're available live streaming at tv33whpr.com and via the Android app through the app by the same name, TV33WHPR, which is available at the Google Play Store, or if you have a proclivity, a preference for Apple products, you can also access through the Apple app, which is available at the Apple App Store as well. Additionally, you can view us on Google TV, the Roku box, and Comcast Channel 91. Tune in, turn on, view us, listen in, lend us your spirit, your energy. Come be a part of this celebration of our culture right here in Detroit, focusing on life, history, people, and events in the 313 and beyond. You can reach us at 313-868-4336, 313-868-0351. And also, we want to give a shout out to our Facebook family, because we broadcast simultaneously on Facebook Live, and that is at Kafense Chike, my personal Facebook page, but we are working on. We actually have the Black in the Day and the 313 Facebook page, which is under development. So we urge you to tune in, turn on, check us out, be a part of what we do here on Monday at 11 p.m. and Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. for 1 hour. And it's so nice they decided to allow us to do it twice. I'm glad to be here, and as always, we begin the show by taking a moment of silence for our African ancestors. Those Africans, and when I say African, for people that be like, well, I'm black, but I'm not an African. I'm talking about black folks, period. For me, it's only two kind of Africans. You're either African that emerged in the diaspora, all the places they took African people to, or you're an African on the continent. And I see we have a caller. Caller, I want to ask you to wait till I just get some housekeeping stuff done. We got two callers. That's real good. So we take a moment of silence for our African ancestors, those who lived their lives in a way that was conducive of changing and making life better for our people. And in some cases, they even died or sacrificed their lives so we could have a better life for ourselves. This includes people like Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Amy Jake Garvey, Betty Shabazz, Mami Imani Humphrey, Mama Aisha Collier, Kwame Kenyatta, King Sundiata Keita, Sister Tracy, Baba Amin Rad. I could go on and on and on with the local and national names, but also we honor our personal family ancestors. So we take a moment of silence for those. We say Asante Sana, Madasi Pa, Ashe Asheo, and that simply means thank you very much. We thank you for your sacrifices. Announcements for this upcoming week. And I just want to say, hey to Marla, Chikesha, I haven't forgot. Hit me up. I'll hit you back as well. Rodney, those are a few Facebook family members that are checking us out. So as always, we go back to support the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network. This is proactive, conscious African people, black folks, that are committed to growing and producing food, good food, wholesome food, organic food, and making it available to our community, our children. Not only are they farming and raising food in urban areas, they also are creating programs to help educate our children and others about the process of food production. They also have the Food Warriors program. They're in the process of creating the People's Food Co-op, which is a cooperative effort to create a co-op, not to go buy some used building from somewhere around the way, but building a food co-op from the ground up, and you can have an opportunity to be a part owner for merely $200. So we urge you to support the Detroit Black Food Security Network. You can find them on Facebook under that same name, Detroit Black Food Security Network, or you can reach out to them at their website, dbcfsn.org. And this is a public service announcement. Of course, we are supporting black business, but in this case, this is not a black for-profit business. This is black folks trying to make life better for black folks, and in general, or more specifically, making life better for everybody. Upcoming events at the Charles H. Wright Museum at 315 East Warren, which you can reach at theright.org. One word, the right, THEWRIGHT.org, or you can call them at 313-484-5800. Tomorrow, Thursday, October the 11th, Quincy Troop, film critic, writer, amongst other things, will be featured in the evolution of the African American voice. As part of the Liberation Film Series, there will be a video, Miles and Me. Along with this video, there will be lecture, discussion, Q&A, and a book signing. And this is from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. tomorrow, October the 11th. Also, and Quincy Troop is currently doing an artist in residence at the Charles H. Wright. Also, Friday, October the 12th, Quincy Troop Workshop, Lyricist Society, featuring the DPS Frederick Douglass Academy for Young Men. That's Friday, October the 12th at 10 o'clock. Then finally, in terms of events for this week, Monk on Monk. Yes, you can go out and check out the classical music of none other than Thelonious Monk. And I know some people say, wait a minute, that's not classical music. Hold up, wait a minute. That is African American classical music. I know we are so brainwashed. We think when you say classical music, that means Bach, Beethoven. Those are European classical artists. All people exist and function in culture, and all people have classical culture. So the classical music of Africans in America is what we call jazz. And Thelonious Monk is definitely one of our classical artists. So this Saturday at 7 o'clock, in a concert entitled Monk on Monk, T.S. Monk, there will be a T.S. Monk's concert, and T.S. Monk is Thelonious Monk's son. T.S. Monk concert featuring Quincy Troop, Saturday, October the 13th at 7 p.m. We urge you to go out to the museum, support the museum, invest in a membership. It's not just an investment in yourself, your learning, and your knowledge. It's an investment in an institution that comes from us as black people, and that's designed to serve our interests. And I'll elaborate a little more on that a little later in the show. Also, this weekend, every second Sunday is Foundation Free Second Sunday. Bring your family and friends to experience the wonder of the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History with free admission every second Sunday of the month, courtesy of the DTE Energy Foundation. Enjoy the many exhibitions on display as well as engaging program for the entire family. This event is free, open to the public, except for tours. And I'm assuming that means guided tours. Now, it's important, people, if you can't afford, if you don't have a membership, take your children down there. Go down there, check out what the museum has to offer. We have some committed, talented individuals working there doing the curation in the program. The Liberation Film Series is off the chain. They bringing in all kind of effective presentations, lectures, discussions. Maulana Karenga, Kathleen Cleaver. I'm kind of trying to talk. And the other night, my sister hit me up on Facebook. She said, bruh, this is my baby sister. I only got one. Stop talking so fast. Slow down and take a breath. There's so much to talk about today. I just trying to get it all in. So we urge you to go out for a Foundation Free Second Sunday from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. every second Sunday of every month. You can actually get in with free admission. Also, another very important program, Legacy of Literacy, Inc. presents Children's Interactive Story Time Sunday, October the 14th. That's this Sunday at 2 o'clock. Bring your children out to check this out. Children that are getting read to, even before they can read. If you read to your children before they can even read, that helps them to be better speakers. It helps them, it increases their ability to read and understand. All of this is a proven fact. And just in case you don't know, I used to teach middle school, elementary school, and high school. So I was privy to a lot of the information and saw the results of that. And having a child and having taught other children, I've seen how reaching you really, those of you that are planning to have children, or if you have children in the process, so if you're pregnant or have maybe expecting a child, read to the child when it's in the womb. Anyhow, Legacy of Literacy, where music, movement, and literacy collide. This interactive story performance will put your children in the story. Have fun dancing and enjoying storytelling with Michelle McKinney, this very phenomenal artist, educator, writer, singer, drummer, storyteller, Michelle Jara McKinney. And along with this presentation, where she tells stories and reads, your child can leave the museum with a book, a free book. So we urge you to come out, participate in the Legacy of Literacy Children's Interactive Story Time, Sunday, October the 14th. This is free and open to the public. This children's interactive story time is made possible by the support of Legacy of Literacy, Inc. And I just want to say, I'm not going to announce the sister's name over the air, but the sister that's behind Legacy of Literacy has been an educator for decades. She's over 85 years old. This sister has been to Africa. She served on Highland Park Board of Education. She is active in so much stuff. I currently interact with her to this day on a weekly basis. She is constantly doing stuff, sending children to the museum in Washington, D.C., the new museum, putting up the money for them to go, leading a group of people to the lynching museum in Alabama. This woman is over 85 years old. Every time I get tired and weary and start thinking about, I got an ache over here, and I don't know if I want to do this, I think about her. She is the brains behind Legacy of Literacy. I'm reminded that I can't be no ways tired, not if this sister is approaching 90 and doing it on an ongoing basis. So we urge you to support those programs. Also, very important meeting tonight at 6:30. The community announcement. Urgent community meeting, Wednesday, October the 10th at Westside Unity Church, 4727 Joy Road, from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Key points to be discussed at this meeting is the Charles H. Wright Museum. Community representation for the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. The selection process and criteria for board members, community input, oppose slavery at the Jefferson Monticello exhibit. They plan on bringing an exhibit to the Charles H. Wright Museum, which looks at Monticello, which was the plantation of Thomas Jefferson. I'll come back to that in a minute. Second annual Black Bus Tour, Saturday, October the 13th at Alkebulan Village at 7701 Harper, Detroit, Michigan. That's this Saturday. And this is a bus tour where these brothers and sisters have come together and said, look, let's charter a bus and let's do a shopping crawl where we take select black businesses and we go to these black businesses, targeting them to bring our money to them. We have to do this, particularly at a time when the city's being gentrified. Black businesses are fading away. So we want you to come and get on the bus. And the schedule will be from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. support the community vendors. So when you meet up at Alkebulan Village, there will be vendors right there on the spot with all type of African wares and other wares, beauty products and things like that. You can shop right there with the vendors at the Alkebulan Village at 7701 Harper. That's from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. At 10 a.m., we board the bus and begin our tour of black businesses. And the businesses, I have a list. Let me get the list out here so you'll know. And these businesses have made agreements with this, in this effort to provide discounts for those members that ride the bus. So this includes Hats Galore, which is at 100061 Gratiot, Cannon Superstore, 11000 East Jefferson, Black Dress Company, 87 East Canfield, Hot Sam's. Y'all know Hot Sam's. It's been here, I know, almost as least as long as I've been on the planet, because I used to go there as a teenager. That's at 127 Monroe. And of course, my good brother Muhammadu at Janae's B's Art Gallery at 1045 Bobian. Burt's Marketplace, we all know Burt's, which is like the cornerstone or foundation of the Eastern market. And Orphan Rivers Accessories, etc., the collective. That's at 8325 East Jefferson. These are the various businesses that they will be going to. Included in this endeavor this Saturday, October the 13th, includes a continental breakfast and a nice hot lunch. For more information, you can reach out to Elder Balagoon at 313-350-8443 or email him at Michael, that's Michael, FHA at yahoo.com. So we urge you to support the Buy Black bus campaign. Get on the bus with us and go and spend your money with black folks. Small nominal fee. Adults $25. Those 12 and under is $15. You get to ride the bus, you get the food, you get access to these vendors, just the vendors, and then these various black businesses. And I just want to go out on a limb and maybe stretch it a little bit and say, less for those business owners out there, we want you to become a part of this, because we can expand this. We also want to urge everyone to make you sure throughout your day, Monday through Friday, stop by 160 Victor Street in Highland Park, make a donation to WHPR. I know people say, yeah, that's R.J. Watkins, blah, 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 blah. This is an independently owned black business. The only way we'll have black businesses is if we support them. And there's people listening to my voice now, viewing this program. You're not paying anything for it. And we're not saying that we want you to pay for it, but we do want you to support what we're doing here. There was this little thing going around Facebook. People talking about, oh, I remember bubble gum and blow pops and apple wine candy cost a penny and penny candy and all of this stuff. And those were the days when the corner store was owned by a black person. The liquor store was owned by a black person. The pharmacy was owned by a black person. The cleaners was owned by a black person. Those places have gone away because we stopped supporting them. So we urge you to support TV33 WHPR. Make out a check to TV33 WHPR. You can pay however you decide to pay. $5, $10, $100, $1,000. It doesn't matter. It's important that we keep this institution thriving, alive, and bringing program that we like to our community. And I just want to say, nobody's paying me to say this. I urge you to support us. It's imperative that we support ourselves. Finally, in announcements, and I have one other. Holy Day of Atonement weekend event schedule. This is Friday, October the 12th through Sunday, October the 14th. And this is the Million Man Alumni Association. Friday 10 through 12, black men of all ages, Muslim, non-Muslim, and there are people that are not Muslim or non-Muslim. I guess non-Muslim is everybody that's not a Muslim, but it's all inclusive. Speak to students, encourage and answer questions of Detroit Public School students. Saturday 10-13, Black Men Cleaning Detroit. There will be a community cleanup. This is all in celebration of the Million Man Alumni Association, which was created out of the Million Man March. Sunday 10-14, the Honorable Louis Minister Farrakhan, Honorable Minister Farrakhan, Aretha Franklin Amphitheater, formerly Shane Park. Gates open at 11 a.m. Minister Farrakhan is scheduled to speak at 1 p.m. Ticket information and vouchers for this group organization is 313-566-4801. And I need to back up. I'm not 100% for sure that that is sponsored by the Million Man Alumni Association, but that is a series of events. I don't have any contact. Oh, you can call 313-566-4801. And I just can assume, I want to thank the people that helped me prepare and do the research for the show, Brother Chago and others. Thank you so much. But call that number, and I'm going to assume that this is sponsored by the March, the Nation of Islam, to celebrate the Million Man March. Also, a very important event, I want to get back to the meeting tonight at Westside Unity Church. The meeting will be tonight, and this is a press release from the Coalition for Ensuring the Black Legacy at the Charles Wright Museum of African American History. Community Coalition challenges, this is a letter, an open letter to the public. The Community Coalition challenges the Charles H. Wright Museum Board over controversial Jefferson exhibition and lack of community representation in museum leadership. A coalition of 20 community organizations bolstered by social media campaigns, including MoveOn.org. These are national organizations, international organizations. MoveOn.org and thecolorofchange.org that collected more than 17,000 signatures. So this entity presented 17,000 signatures supporting their interest in impacting the programming at the Charles Wright Museum and ensuring that the focus that was a part of the original founding of the museum was sustained, has been rebuffed. So their efforts have been rebuffed. These signatures have been rebuffed by the Board of Trustees of the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. In its effort to win community representation on the board and prevent the hosting of the exhibition, Slavery at Jefferson's Monticello Paradox of Liberty. Recently, the coalition wrote to the museum board to oppose installation of the Jefferson Plantation exhibition during Black History Month 2019. The exhibit seeks to represent the slavery experience in ways that delete or obscure the essential features of the plantation system: inhumane violence and terror. And I said I wasn't going to interject, but I went to Monticello in 2000. This was, I forget how many acres, but the Monticello plantation that Thomas Jefferson had included over 600 enslaved African people there at any given time. As much of the exhibit erases from history the sufferings of our ancestors and fails to acknowledge their extraordinary capacity to overcome the oppression to which they were subjected, this falsification of history is offensive and inappropriate given the heinous practices of slaveholders like Jefferson and given the nature of current race relations in the U.S., where police violence and murder of our youth continue to plague our communities. Thousands of signers have supported the coalition's insistence that such an exhibition should not be featured at the Wright, which was founded to uplift and inspire the African American community. In a letter to the coalition, the museum board has reiterated their determination to host the Jefferson exhibit. They also rejected the coalition's proposal that there be community representation on the museum board and CEO selection committee. The recent ouster of the CEO, President Ms. Juanita Moore, prompted the Black community's concerned response. Ms. Moore was dismissed suddenly, despite her stellar record of creating financial stability for the museum and raising the programming of the museum to a level of national recognition and enthusiastic community support. Within 2 months of her leaving, the board appears to be moving towards other staff changes, alerting the coalition that the board intends a new direction in policies and programs. We are concerned that this new direction is intended to accommodate corporate/private white supremacist interests like the Jefferson exhibition rather than those of the African American community at large. Why put the Jefferson exhibit at the DIA? I mean, for real. Indeed, it appears that the board who is taking the lead in imposing the Jefferson exhibition is Euro-American attorney James P. Cunningham of Williams, Ratner, and Plunkett law firm, Birmingham, Michigan. Why is it a law firm from Birmingham, Michigan? I'm assuming there's no white folks on there, no black folks on there. I had no idea. But if it is, why would the Charles H. Wright Museum have a law firm that's not in the city of Detroit? There's plenty of law firms right here. Just a bone of contention. The other board members appear indifferent to the outrage of 17,000 individuals who have signed a petition against the exhibit. And this is the order of the day. We ignore what the people say they want. This is supposed to be a government. Did I know this is not the government of the people? But we know the government has set a standard, and these people follow it. And it's all ties right into the gentrification of the city. Now they want to take over the museum. What's next? I don't even want to think about what could be next. Are the board members aware that Jefferson made an enslaved Sally Hemings the bearer of 7 of his children, only 4 of whom survived to adulthood? Are they aware that for over a century, white historians in the U.S. attempted to cover up this story, dismissing the claims of African-American descendants of Hemings and Jefferson until DNA science made it impossible for them to do so? Having no alternative now but to recognize Thomas Jefferson's outrageous hypocrisy as a slaveholder, such historians now want to recast Sally Hemings, the enslaved child, Jefferson's victim, in the following contradictory ways: negotiator, liberator, world traveler, enslaved woman, concubine, inherited property, mystery. What unmitigated deceit? And we have to understand that 2 things about the relationship with Jefferson and Hemings. By today's standards, that would be child molestation. I just got to call it what it is. In any sex, there's no such thing as consensual sex when you are operated in, or you are functioning in, a contested relationship or a relationship of duress. An enslaved person cannot consent to consensual sex with their master because of the power implications of the relationship. If she was 16 and he was an adult white male, or any male, he raped her. And if I'm wrong, you can call me on that. At a community meeting held at Sacred Heart Church on September the 19th, 200 plus activists carried out a nomination and election process to vet 10 community representatives to join the museum board and 4 community representatives to join the CEO selection committee. The following were the criteria for nomination. So we sat down and voted on these people. For people to get elected, they had to include, they had to fit this criteria: 10 or more years of ongoing engagement in community service or organizing to advance and protect the rights and well-being of the African American community, demonstrated leadership and trust of community, interest in knowledge and advocacy of African American history and culture, readiness to collaborate to generate resources to maintain African American institutions. And there's a list. I'm not going to say the list of people whose names, because I don't have their express permission to announce their names or to publicize that, but we urge you to come out to the meeting tonight. You can find out everything that you need to know or want to know. The coalition will continue to demand that these elected community representatives be included on the museum board and the CEO selection committee. As the corporations and their allies in government and public agencies continue their ruthless gentrification of Detroit, dispossessing African Americans and other people of color through home foreclosures, illegal property taxes, water shutoffs, toxic water, and school closing, and as these forces insist on building yet another jail to facilitate the school-to-prison pipeline for our youth, the coalition will take all action at its disposal to ensure that the Charles H. Wright Museum remains a center of community government, a center of our community governed in the interest of the community. The coalition is appealing to everyone who treasures the museum, both locally and nationally, to speak out, send letters, and text to the board chairperson, Mr. Eric Peterson. You can reach him by email at epeterson, EPETERSON, @theright.org, and interim chief operating officer, Mr. George Hamilton, who's retired from Dow Chemical, retired Dow Chemical executive. You can reach him via email. And we need to blow the spot up. We need to blow their emails up, whatever, snail mail, email, text, phone call. We need to blow it up to let them know we're not having it. You're not going to undermine our agency. We're not having it. You can reach out to Mr. Hamilton via email at ghamilton, GHAMILTON, @theright.org. Demand that the elected community representatives be seated on the museum board and on the selection committee for the new CEO, and that another exhibit other than the one featuring the Monticello plantation, demand that another exhibit exhibit representative of our people's hopes and strivings be brought to the museum to celebrate African American History Month in 2019. The next meeting for the coalition will be held today, October 10th at 6:30 p.m. at Westside Unity Church at 4727 Joy Road. We urge you to have your face in the place. It ain't gonna stop. They wiped out Cass Corridor, all of this. They gave land to the Illiges and other people to create our money, really, to create the Little Caesars Arena. We have to be mindful that with the so-called development comes the exploitation of people and the undermining of people. So we urge you to come out and support the efforts to sustain the focus of the Charles H. Wright Museum, which was the intended focus of Dr. Wright when he began this museum. And I remember, and I say this every time I think about him, every time I'm in the Charles Wright Museum, particularly if I'm at a microphone talking. I remember going there as a little boy doing Negro History Week, and how important and how powerful it was to step into that little building during Negro History Week, how powerful and important it was to be made aware of what our ancestors have done. And we not only need to have access to the knowledge and information, everybody's not going to be an activist, but we need to take this knowledge and information that we get in the enlightenment and make it work to and inspire us and move us to do things to continually advance the status and standing of our people. On to our going to Ken Coleman for the rest of the time we have here today, and to the announcements. I just want to kind of get my papers in order here. And every time I read the letter the other day, I get fired up because stuff is happening on so many levels. And I've been trying real hard to not even talk about this whole Donald Trump stuff, because every day is some more ish. And what we don't see, what we don't know, or can't seem to be aware of or pay attention to, is that our people are constantly under attack. People say we walked off of the plantation in 1865. It's not true. We did leave the physical plantation. But what has happened to us, and power resides in institutions. Why do you say that? The institution of slavery was sustained, the system of slavery was sustained by American institutions like the legal system, like the state, county, city legislature, federal legislatures, the judicial branch of government, the executive branch of government. All these various branches of government and other institutions were used to fortify and sustain slavery. When slavery ended, they continued to use the same institutions in a system of sharecropping and convict leasing, which lasted from 1865 well into the 1960s. Then we had another system, which institutions were used to keep us oppressed and suppressed during the Jim Crow era, which lasts from 1898, 1896, this is just a 2-year difference, to 1954 when Brown versus Board of Education reversed that. Shortly after that, we go into another system, which we're in today, or a period of mass incarceration. So black people have not ever, in our time being here or anywhere in the various places that we were enslaved, not under consistent institutional, not just racism, but oppression and enslavement. For real. And we can't ever not fight. And we have to fight on every level, in every possible way. Black in the Day in the 313. This day, African American life in Detroit on this day. I got kind of fired up here. Deaths for this week include October the 8th, 1963, attorney and former state senator Charles Anthony Roxbury made his transition to the ancestors. He was 75 years old. Roxbury was Eastern High School graduate and in 1914 a College of Law graduate. He was the first African American to serve in the Michigan Senate from 1931 to 1932. Roxborough was born in Plaquemine, Louisiana in 1888. October 9th, 1999. Milt Jackson, jazz vibraphonist, great and Detroit native. Jazz vibraphonist and Detroit native, made his transition to the ancestral realm. He was 76 years old. October the 10th, 1929, Elijah McCoy made his transition. He was 85, and this is where the term "the real McCoy" comes from. McCoy was an inventor with more than 57 U.S. patents, most of them involving the steam engine. McCoy, who had an African ancestry, was born a free man in 1844 in Ontario, Canada. And it's very important that we know and understand. We know about the Underground Railroad. We know that Detroit was a place where people came to fleeing enslavement. And after 1850, with the passing of the Fugitive Slave Act, more of us began to go. Canada, Detroit wasn't far enough, so we went to Canada. We always went to Canada, escaping slavery, even before the Fugitive Slave Act. But what people don't know is there were blacks that were escaping from the British early on, prior to 1808. And when the British outlawed slavery, the British outlawed the transatlantic slave trade in 1807. I forget the exact date that they abolished slavery in England and their territories, but there were enslaved Africans in Canada that came across the river this way, fleeing the British. And what our ancestors did is built communities on both sides of the Detroit River, and these communities were designed to be a refuge and a place where escaped enslaved Africans could come to and rebuild their lives. So I just want to say that in the context of thinking about Elijah McCoy and the fact that he was born in Ontario, Canada. 2001, Dr. Frederick, this is October the 10th, Dr. Frederick G. Sampson, pastor of Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church since 1971, made his transition. He was 72 years old. Sampson was a former Detroit branch NAAC president and a nationally respected clergy leader who had been cited as one of America's most influential clergy by Ebony magazine. And many of us remember Fred Sampson and Tabernacle Baptist Church. Of course, Tabernacle is now at Grand River and West Grand Boulevard, in the very spot that Northwestern High School originally sat at. And I was fortunate enough to have went there. We know that many people, very revolutionary, competent, cultured nationalists, radicals, graduated and went to Northwestern High School. And in fact, I'm working on a project now about the student protest movement in Detroit and the many walkouts they had back in the day in the 1960s. A high school would announce they were walking out, or the word got around, and the high school would walk out, the local middle school would walk out, then it didn't really trickle down to the elementary schools as much. Another thing that happened at Northwestern High School, students demanded they change the name to Malcolm X High School and whatnot, but I'll talk more about that in another show. Births for this week: 1964, Priscilla Winans was born in Detroit, Michigan. She's better known as CeCe Winans. She would go on to become an award-winning gospel singer and music producer. 1929, October the 9th, William Emanuel Huddleston, also known as Yusef Lateef, was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee. He will become a talented and influential jazz musician, composer, and educator who would tour with Dizzy Gillespie in 1947 and become a band leader in his own right. October the 10th, 1947, Vera S. Green was born in Columbus, Georgia. Green is raised in Detroit, attended Cass Tech High School, Wayne State University, and Michigan State University. Green will hold the leadership position at General Motors and the Detroit Medical Centers in the 1970s. October 10th, 1950, Luther Alton Keith was born in Detroit. Keith will attend Sampson and St. Agnes Elementary Schools and graduated from Cathedral High School in 1968. After being hired by the Detroit News in 1972, he will blaze several trails. Unfortunately, I can't read all of this information because we just don't have the time, but it's a lot of information here. 1960, October the 10th, Kenny Garrett was born in Detroit. The McKenzie High School graduate will become a gifted and talented jazz saxophonist, and he's still active today. But born in 1960 is young. He became a talented jazz saxophonist and band leader during the 1990s. Garrett will play with iconic trumpeter Miles Davis as well as enjoy numerous successful recordings and jazz festival appearances all over the world. October the 12th, 1953, Conrad L. Mallett Jr. was born in Detroit. The Cass Technical High School graduate would go on to become the first African American to serve as the Michigan Supreme Court Chief Justice in 1977. Historical events for this week include 1949, the Detroit Committee to welcome Paul Robeson held a rally at the Forest Club in Paradise Valley. Those attending with a speaking role included Common Council candidate the Reverend Charles H. Hill, Irma Henderson, UAW official Dave Moore, Forest Club owner, yes, Sonny Wilson, and he was very political. Robeson, an actor, Paul Robeson, an actor, singer, athlete, and activist, has come from under fire for his pro-left position during the height of the anti-communist era in America. Wilson refuses to bow to political pressure from local officials and hosts the controversial Robeson. Sonny Wilson hosted him, and Paul Robeson had really been whitelisted. I'm not going to say blacklisted because black is a beautiful thing. He had been whitelisted, so he couldn't even perform in concert halls. But what Paul Robeson did, he performed at churches. He performed on the steps of one of the monuments in Washington, D.C. That brother was committed. He was a lawyer, a Rhodes Scholar, a football player, and a hell of an actor. He was, and his whole political thing was just, that requires a whole course in and of itself. And Sonny Wilson was activist in supporting him and other things that he did. And Sonny Wilson is somebody we need to look closer at as well as a historical figure in Detroit. October 10th, 1961, Otis Smith became the first African American to serve on the Michigan Supreme Court. Smith was appointed by Governor John Swainson, who was a Democrat. October the 10th, 1984, the City Council adopted a resolution calling for local divestment in South Africa. The declaration is sponsored by Barbara Rose Collins, Sister Maconda. The measure forbids city government from using general or pension fund dollars with the companies that do business in South Africa which practice racial apartheid. 1869, after years of advocacy and protest on both sides of the issue, African American children are admitted to Detroit Public Schools. This is October 11th, 1869. Detroit Public Schools for the first time. The action follows a historic late Supreme Court ruling based on the newly ratified 14th Amendment, which states that all people should be treated equally under the law. One advocate of having African American children taught in city public schools is Fannie Richards, and she was the first African American teacher in the public school system in Detroit, by the way. A private school educator and activist who will eventually become the school district's first black teacher in 1871. African Americans at the time made up 2.8% of the city's population. That's 2,200 of the 79,000 residents. This is numbers are based on the U.S. Census. October 11th, 1975, the Michigan Chronicle reports that Catherine C. Blackwell has been named chairperson of the Michigan Civil Rights Commission. The educator was appointed to the body in 1973. The commission was created by the 1963 state constitution for protection of Michigan residents against discrimination. October 12, 1972, Lady Sings the Blues, starring Diana Ross and Billy D. Williams, debuts in the National Movie Theaters. 1987, October the 12th, Charles Anderson became the sixth leader of the Detroit Urban League. Anderson has previously served as a regional official with the NAACP. The mission of the Detroit Urban League is to assist African Americans and other people of color to cultivate and exercise their fullest human potential on par with all other Americans. Early on, when the Urban League was formed, they were a communist organization, and their job was to refine black people or help black people transition from the southern places we migrated from. This is in the early teens, in the early 1900s. And transition them to be able to fit into urban communities like Detroit. There's some interesting stories about that because we came up here like country bumpkins, Johnny Just Come and things like that. And the Urban League's job was to help you find jobs, but they also had to kind of refine you so that you fit in the city, so you didn't sit on the porch braiding hair and throwing chicken bones all out in the street around your house and things like that. This is well documented. There's a book called Life for Us is What We Make It, which is about how African Americans built community. Those early African Americans coming up here from the South. Now it was black people here as long as first of all, blacks came to this part of the world before Europeans even had an idea what it was about. That's well documented by Kofi Wangara and Ivan Van Sertima. But in more recent time, let's say post-Columbus, blacks came here with the French settlers who settled this place, allegedly settled this place. Anyhow, October the 13th, 1975, the Scene dance show debuts on WGPR TV 62. And of course, WHPR is a offshoot, descendant of the Scene. We know this. And that is another reason why we continue to keep this place going. The weekday afternoon dance show hosted by veteran radio personality and record company executive Ray Henderson is one of the first regularly scheduled broadcasts to air on the newly launched black-owned television station. The first of its kind in America. Station brass will soon identify an equally talented co-host named Nat Morris, who will assist Henderson in hosting the duties. The show will air on the station until 1987, and we know later we came with the genius of R.J. Watkins and the new dance show. October the 13th, 1993, the Detroit Black Journal spotlights the power of talk radio. Darrell Wood hosts the broadcast. Guest word, Bob Law. Now, that's a blast from the past because I remember him, and I'm sure many of the people in the audience remember Bob Law's Night Talk. Also on the show were Mark Scott of WXYT-AM and the veteran radio personality John Arnold of WCHB 1200. October the 13th, 2002, Ed Love, venerable radio personality, is recognized by the Southeast Michigan Jazz Association for his outstanding contribution to jazz. During a special ceremony held at Baker's Keyboard Lounge, Love, a Parsons, Kansas native, has a dynamic radio career in Detroit beginning in the early 1960s. At WCHB 1440 and WCHD-FM 105.9, and I remember WCHD. I just love to talk about it in my house. That's what we listened to. This radio station, when I was a small kid, was always on WCHD. And that helped me to develop a great love for jazz. And I play African music and a variety of types of music as a musician, but I always say that my first love in terms of music is jazz. And it's a result of listening to the likes of Ed Love and Rosetta Hines and others who were on WCHD, which later became WJZZ. Ed Love also worked at WDET 101.9 since 1983. Ed Love is still on the radio at WHPR. I'm sorry, at WDET. October the 14th, 1967, Motown recording artist Tammy Terrell collapsed in Marvin Gaye's arms during their performance at Hampton Sydney College in Virginia. Although Terrell's illness, a malignant brain tumor, will keep the 22-year-old away from performing on the road, studio work continued on, this is just bringing chills down my spine, on the hit You're All I Need, the second album of duets performed by the label Mates. Terrell will make her transition in 1970. 1984, Larry Herndon on the Detroit Tigers catches a lazy fly ball off the bat of San Diego Padres' Tony Gwynn, and the home team win their first Major League Baseball World Championship since 1968. The game is played at Tiger Stadium. 1993, Deborah McGriff resigns as general superintendent of the 170,000 student Detroit Public Schools system. The tenure for the New York City native, who previously served in a leadership role with the Milwaukee Public School District, is only 27 months. Miss McGriff, who is essentially chased out of Detroit by some of the same board members who brought her to the Motor City, is the first woman to serve in the post. And I just want to mention Deborah McGriff because it was under her leadership and others, Dahir Shabaka, Catherine Blackwell, Norman McCray, the Community Task Force of Education. I may have got that exact name wrong. This was Brother Baba Banachi, Brother Saeed, Mama Tahir, Sister Rakia, and if I forget anybody, please forgive me. I'm just kind of editing this in or coming off the top of my head. Dahir Shabaka, Brother Dr. Clifford Watson, Alvin Ramsey, Noah Brown, the many, many, many people that came together to formulate African-centered schools. They were able to make this happen, of course, with the support of Deborah McGriff. And in fact, the period of African-centered education in Detroit, when it was blatantly that, because we had a lot of precursors to it, is all but gone, particularly in Detroit public schools, and we need to have it back. For those of us that grew up in the Coleman Young era, if nothing else, and there's a lot of things that we can say about that era that benefit us, we were reinforced with a positive, strong black identity that made us proud of who we were and proud to be from Detroit. How is the current tendency, the gentrification, the changing of the institutions, the reformation of the board, and all of these things, how is that changing? How is that changing the city, and how would it impact how our children see themselves? There were so many strong black people produced from the time period, not just of Deborah McGriff, definitely during the era of Coleman Young, and for the many periods before, because we worked, fought, and struggled ongoing. And some of us are continuing to do that today. Unfortunately, we are out of time. It's 10 o'clock. It's time for us to go. We'll see you again here next week. We want to thank R.J. Watkins for this opportunity. We want to thank Minister Malik Shabazz for allowing me to be a part of his show with the Black in the Day and the 313 segment. And as always, we close with the words of our patron saint, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. We say, up, you mighty race. You can accomplish what you will.